welcome along to Donington Park for the opening rounds of the 2022 GT Cup Championship. We've got huge entries over the course of this season, with many cars, teams and drivers returning to the championship, but also lots of new entrants too. So before we look at what's going on track, let's just have a look at how the weekend format works. So let's have a look at the typical race weekend format. There's a 10-minute warm-up session, and then it's split for this season into two separate 10-minute qualifying sessions. The first 10 minutes is for the cars that run in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC, and we'll tell you more about those in a moment. Followed by the second 10 minutes, which is for cars in Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA. Most race weekends have a 25-minute sprint race and a 50-minute pit stop race on each day, but the one exception is Alton Park, a single-day meeting, therefore we'll have two 40-minute pit stop races. So that's the general format for the race weekend. Now let's have a look at the way the individual groups work. Group GTO is for open specification cars, and therefore that's where we see the cars that are built to either GTE or GT2 specification or some modified challenge cars. Group GT3 is for homologated GT3 cars running to manufacturers' GT specifications. So those will be cars potentially you could see racing in the domestic and European GT championships. Group GTC is for current and later challenge cars, the likes of Lamborghini Super Trofeos and Ferrari Challenge Europe cars, but they have to be more recent cars because if they're slightly older than 5 years, they will sit in Group GTB. Group GTH, the most popular class we have so far this season, is for homologated GT cars that run to GT4 specification. So again, you would see those in other domestic and European GT championships. And the final group is Group GTA. They are for lower specification challenge cars and will make series GT cars, the likes of cars from the Ginetta Super Cup. So that's told you a little bit about the groups. The GT Cup Championship is steeped in history, so it's time to catch up with Chris Haynes, the man behind Butte Motorsport and the GT Cup.
The 15th year of GT Cup, where's the time gone?
Well, it's flown by, it's very exciting. 15 years is a small landmark for us, but the championship's just grown from strength to strength. Obviously my brother Mark founded the championship with Hannah, and between them they built it up, and I got involved a few years ago. But yeah, it's remarkable that we're still racing, and this year we're racing with an exceptional grid. I can't tell you how excited I am to get out there, and our first round is just going to be completely awesome. Yeah.
I mean, you look back at that first ever race at Snetterton in 2007. 38 cars on the grid. You look at the grid we're likely to have in 2022, similar numbers, but whilst the grid numbers are the same, the championship has evolved, hasn't it, during that period?
Absolutely. So the GT Cup, when it was first created, was a very, in many respects, it was quite different to what we have now, but the fundamental core values as to why the GT Cup has grown in popularity and stature within the motorsport family is because of those core values that we had at the very beginning. The outset that my brother, when he created it, it was very much about like-minded drivers wanting to have good racing in a convivial and enjoyable arena. And we've stuck true to those values all the way through the 15 years. And it's very exciting. The 2007, it was also a very different, cars were very different back then. It's 15 years ago. Technology's developed hugely, GT racing has developed hugely. We had a lot of Porsche, Ferrari back in the day, but of course it was also created for the cars that were slightly older. My brother had a 360, Ferrari 360. He didn't have anywhere to race it. So he thought, well, I'll create my own race championship. And that's where it came from. And so he, with his network of friends within the motorsport, they went racing with 38 cars. And the rest is history. But of course now we're going into the 2022 season with GT3s, GTH, GT4 cars. You know, they are cutting edge. They are no longer the sort of out-of-date cars. These are the cars that are running front runners in you know, all over the world. The reason why people want to come and race with us still remains, and we are, yeah, we're an open championship. You know, it's the camaraderie in the pit lane is really important to us. We want people to share the experience and enjoy it for racing, not for status necessarily. Obviously status comes with, but yeah, it's good.
So 2022, you know, really exciting year, colossal entries, and it's going to be a competitive championship with some existing teams returning, some of those existing teams returning but with a new car, and some entirely new teams and cars coming in.
Yeah, it's you know, we have 40 full season entries, 20 GTH, which is the GT4 car, 12 GT3s, and then the remainder of the grid is made up of GTO and B, C. But those two groups are really going to be quite spectacular. You know, the last few years we've been building. Last year we had an average of 36. This year we've got a full grid of 40, and of course at certain circuits we can have more cars. Brands Hatch is going to be awesome. You know, we're going to be leading the charge when it comes to GT racing at Brands Hatch. I know that the GT World Challenge Europe is going to be there with Valentino Rossi, but you know, our grid's going to be massive, and Silverstone again. We've got lots of interest of people who want to come and do a couple of rounds, and it's, you know, the grids are just going to be spectacular.
Have a great season. Good luck in 2022.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Wonderful to hear about the GT Cup Championship and its history. Well, let's have a look at the way the calendar shapes up. We're at Donington Park on the national circuit before we head to Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit, supporting the GT World Challenge Europe. It's on to Snetterton in the middle of June, and after that, then it's that single-day race meeting up at Alton Park in the early part of July. Silverstone and the Grand Prix circuit greets the drivers at the end of July. We're back to Donington, but on the Grand Prix circuit in September, and the championship finale, as it was in 2021, will take place at Snetterton in Norfolk in the early part of October. Well, Donington Park is ideally located for most of the competitors, slap bang in the middle of the Midlands. It's also a circuit which has enormous history. It can trace its roots back to the pre-war period, albeit it was closed briefly and reopened in its current format in the 1970s, but was originally built in 1931. The circuit itself has 3 sectors and 9 corners. So let's have a look at the Donington Park National Circuit. The cars will head off the start line through Redgate Corner and Hollywood, heading downhill through the lowest part of the circuit at the Old Hairpin, climbing all the way back through McLean's and Coppice. The final sector, 2 straights linked by the Roberts chicane, the right and left flicks. We've also managed this weekend to catch up with our reigning champions, Sam and Richard Neary, to gauge their thoughts ahead of the 2022 season. So whilst we hear from them, it gives me a chance to head upstairs to the commentary box before the cars head to the grid.
So Richard and Sam, you're our overall reigning GT Cup championships. Richard, start with you. You look back at last year, it was a season that, you know, wasn't without its troubles along the way.
No, considerable highs and lows. yeah, it was a good season. We had a lot of success. We had a big accident at Spa, which made it difficult. Certainly to contest British GT properly, we ended up skipping some rounds in order to complete the whole of this championship to try and win it. So yeah, it was hard fought.
You know, we're at Donington Park now, Sam, and that was a round that last year again caused you trouble. You could have stitched up the overall championship at the penultimate round, had it not been for a problem which then saw the championship go to the wire.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the race was going so well. I think we had a minute odd lead, but unfortunately the gearbox issue did cost us that win.
And all of a sudden, Sam Neary's got a problem. It looks as though the Mercedes is going to be out of the race.
And ultimately made it go to the final round. Luckily, I do enjoy Donington, so I did actually still have quite a nice seat and enjoy the scenery, and we still managed to wrap up the championship in the end. So no, it was just delayed the process.
A father and son team, our first father and son champions. What's the dynamic, Sam, as the young man here? What's the dynamic like in the garage with Dad? Do you always see eye to eye?
90% of the time we don't. Well, you know, only the 10% is seen. But no, I think it's amazing. It's an incredible experience to spend this time with my dad and race with him. You know, I think a lot of people want to do what me and him do, and we're very lucky that we both are quite competitive as well. So no, it's an incredible experience. Obviously, I need to try and move on to, I say, bigger and better things. But yeah, so that's the plan for the future. But right now, I'm just enjoying where I'm at, and I love racing with my dad.
We've never had back-to-back champions in the GT Cup. Could we have back-to-back champions at the end of 2022?
Watch this space.
Exactly.
So there we go, that gives you the background to the championship, and well, there is the Nearys. They had problems in qualifying. Sam Neary having a mechanical issue during the qualifying session, which means that car starts off the very, very back of the grid, I'm afraid to say. So be interested to see how they carve their way through the order. So that's what the grid looks like. I'll guide you through the grid. I don't think we've got a graphic that we can bring you, but we'll run through the grid when they head on their formation lap. But joining me in the commentary box is a driver that this time last year would have been on the grid in GT Cup. And whilst we don't see him on GT Cup this year, we will see him in other championships. Alongside me is Mo Ritz. And Mo, welcome to the commentary box. Great to have you along.
Thank you for having me. It's an exciting experience. I'm yet to experience a race in the commentary box, normally in the pits or in the car itself, so another new experience to take off, and I'm excited to see it from a new perspective.
GT Cup 2021, you were racing a McLaren GT4 in Group GTH in the championship, yourself and Tom Rawlings. You've both moved on to different things for this year, but you know, runner-up in Group GTH last year, you must have been pleased.
Yeah, very much so. It was my first season in the full-spec GT4 car, so there was a lot of learning experiences, and it was a steep learning curve, but we ticked off some great experience, got some wins, got some podiums. Obviously there are lows, like with every part of motorsport, but no, it's a great year to look back on and hoping to build on it this year.
Paddock Motorsport was your team that you're racing with. They've got plenty of cars on the grid. Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher, who co-own that team, busy with cars in Group GTH and Group GT3. You're still part of that team because you're driver coach this weekend. You get your racing season underway next weekend in the British GT Championship.
That's right. Yep, first round at Alton Park. It's a big step up. It's something that I didn't expect till a couple of weeks ago. So it's all come around fairly last minute, but it's an incredible experience, and I couldn't think of another set of people I'd rather do it with than Paddock Motorsport.
It was a bit of a surprise for you, wasn't it? I think I knew that you were in British GT before you knew you were in British GT.
I think so. It was very last minute, but there's nothing like the last minute deals. They're always the best ones.
So there's the grid. There's the Nearys at the back of the grid. Our reigning champions. There's also problems for Roy Millington in the Ferrari in qualifying. Let's run you through the grid then. I don't think we've got a graphic, but I'll guide you through the grid and the starting drivers. Row 1 of the grid, it's the Ram Racing Mercedes of Ian Logie alongside number 67, which is Simon Orange in the Orange Racing powered by JMH McLaren. Row 2 of the grid, it's another McLaren, number 66 Enduro Motorsport. Alongside is Mike Price in the second of the Ram Racing Mercedes. The third row of the grid sees the first of the G-Stone GT cars. Ian Campbell stepping up from a GT4 car to a GT3 this year. He has for company the GCAT Racing Porsche in the hands of Seamus Jennings. And row 4 of the grid, it's number 7, the Raw Motorsport Radical of Steve Burgess, local man from Nottingham, who lines up alongside number 61. The Scott Sport Lamborghini in the hands of John Dillon. The next row of the grid, new car for this weekend and this season, it's Graham Tilley in the TechServe number 4 Mercedes alongside the Team Webb Lamborghini returning to the championship, the former champions in their groups. Only saw them once last year. It's James Webb that starts. And alongside number 44 Paddock Motorsport, Steve Ruston stepping up from GT4, the former champion, up to GT3 this year, and alongside is car number 247 Lucky Kira in the Race Lab Ferrari. One car starting from the pit lane we'll tell you about in a few moments' time. Let's guide you through the rest of the grid. The SB Race Engineering McLaren, number 28 of Paul Bailey, lines up alongside the number 10 machine, which is next up, James Taylor in the Team Hard Porsche. And then as we move further down through the grid, it should be the Simpson Motorsport Mach 1 Mustang, but that, as we've just seen, will start from the pit lane, and alongside is car number 9, the Top Cats Lamborghinis, which I've got to say their livery, Jensen Lund behind the wheel of that one, look absolutely stunning this weekend. And row 9 of the grid, it's Century Motorsport, the number 6 car, which is Alex Stevenson lining alongside number 50, which is James Wallace for Veluga Motorsport in the Porsche. As we carry on down through the grid, Make Happen Racing, number 69, is next up alongside the second of the 2 Top Cats Lamborghinis in the hands of Charlotte Gilbert. Her 50th birthday present was a Lamborghini. She lines up on the 10th row of the grid. And row 11 of the grid is number 17, which is going to be Will Dendy for this race, making his debut in the championship in the number 17 car alongside the next of the cars, which is Neil McLennan, number 51. Next row of the grid is 52, another Veluga Motorsport Porsche, alongside the second of the number 96 Make It Happen Racing Mercedes, and that's about all we've got time for because they're already in neat 2x2 order. Ian Logie looking to do the full championship solo over the course of this season. The runner-up in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship last year, a former champion in the in the GT World Challenge Europe, formerly known as Blancpain Series, sits there on pole position. The pace car peels its way into the pit lane. The red lights are on. 25-minute sprint race will get the 2022 GT Cup Championship season underway. Not a bad start from Ian Logie. Simon Orange is matching him down towards Redgate Corner, but he's on the outside line. The nose of the cars dip together. A full grid of cars need to tread carefully through the first corner. And as they all round Redgate for the first time, off and through the gravel trap, I'm afraid, goes one of the Porsches. That is going to be James Taylor. Should be able to work his way through the order and rejoin the tarmac, but he's dropping all the way down through the order. So Ian Logie, fantastic start from him. Mo Ritson, they were all treading gingerly through the first corner. Cold tyres maybe on the Porsche just catching him out there?
I think so. This new compound tyre is a very tough one to get the heat into, so I think there's going to be a few people this weekend maybe struggling with that, but he's done a good job of getting it on safely, which is always the main thing, and hopefully he can make some progress from there.
You're talking about the new tyre, it's cold conditions out there as well. They've only had one formation lap. You've got to get the heat into the tyre and into the brakes, haven't you?
Massively. It's so important on your warm-up lap. It's the difference between a fast first lap and potentially dropping loads of positions, as we've seen with a few of the guys out there. So it's a new challenge for a lot of the guys out there this year, but hopefully everyone can improve on it.
Look at this squabble for second place. Simon Orange sticking his elbows out. Morgan Tilbrook looking to try and squeeze his way through. Simon Orange lights the rears up. The traction sort of just about kicks in there and saves him. Really squirrely moment there, and just that little loss of momentum, Mo. What's that? 4-5 cars have picked him off by the time they get towards Redgate. It
just shows how quickly a little slip up can affect your position, but again, hopefully he can work from there, get some more heat into his tyres and progress through.
I mean, how scary is that as a driver? These GT3 cars do have traction control, which you can adjust as the race goes on, but it just seemed as though the car slewed away from him there.
I think so, and again, I think it could just come down from this very cold ambient temperature and track temperature, and I think a few of the guys will be feeling the pain from that. So it's not a nice experience getting a big snap of oversteer on the exit of a corner in any car. So yeah, hopefully that's not been too much of a problem for him.
Problems for the V8 engine Mark 11, which is a car that traces its roots back to having raced in Australia, does that car. It is Shasha Kaka that is starting that particular car. We'll share the car come the pit stop race later on with former double independence championship winner in the British Touring Car Championship some years ago, which is James Kay. The race still continuing as the cars pile their way in towards the right and left flicks at the Roberts chicane. Looking to try and gain places there. That's number 17, which is Will Dendy, who has just picked up a place over one of the Veluga Racing Porsches there. As for Richard Neary, still carving the ABBA Commercials Mercedes from the tail end of the field up towards the sharp end. Well, the championship seems to have stepped up yet another level again this year with the level of competition of drivers and the quality of the cars and the number of entrants as well. So for a GT3 car starting at the very back of the grid, should make reasonable progress through some of the cars, but once you start to get to the other GT3 cars and pick those off, it's a tough old task for Richard Neary from the tail end of the field.
I can imagine, and being in the GT4s, you can see how fast the closing speeds are of those GT3s. They're so fast that for Richard's position, you've really got to be so switched on, because those GT4s can come up to you so fast and they're not always too predictable. So it's a big game of just predicting where the cars are going to go ahead of you, and when you've got to do that whilst thinking of all the other things that are going on, I can imagine it's not an easy challenge for him out there.
So here comes Simon Orange. At the moment he is bottled up behind the number 61 Scott Sport John Dillon driven Lamborghini. Picks it off on the exit of the Roberts chicane, so place gained from the McLaren over the Lamborghini, and also by the look of things for second place, things are hotting up now as well. Morgan Tilbrook is under pressure for third place in the race by the Radical RXC that sits behind. Now you can see by the windscreen strip there's a little green flash in the corner of the Radical behind. That's because that car runs in Group GTO, so it leads its group at this stage, but it is sitting third overall. And the local man, Steve Burgess, a multiple Radical champion and also a former British quad bike champion from some years ago, sits there in third position. Now, you're winning your group, Mo. It's the points in the group that are important towards the championship. You're quicker than the car ahead. It's the first round of the series. What do? Do you hold station, or do you still want to try and grab that place if you can?
I think everyone's in a racing drive is always going to want to overtake them. It's almost like an instinct at that point, but sometimes you just got to take a step back from it and just think, is it really worth it? You know, if you're gauging that it's a dangerous situation when you're putting an overtake on, you've just got to weigh up what you would gain versus what you could lose. And later on in the season, that becomes even more important, especially when you're battling for championships. So yeah, I think it's really a case of just gauging who you're racing against and what's on the line, really. And at this point, it's still very early doors.
And of course, you know, very different dynamic again. It's the first round of the championship, so Steve Burgess is potentially fighting his way through past other drivers that you might not know their driving style because they're new to the championship. You won't have raced either nose to tail, or wheel to wheel with them. Another place gained there by Richard Neary, so that is the Lamborghini Huracan that he has picked off there. So that is going to be one of the cars that is the Top Cats Racing. That's Jensen Lund's car that he's managed to pick off. Great to see Jensen back racing. He did miss a couple of races towards the back end of last year with ill health. He is continuing to improve, so we're really pleased to see Jensen fit enough now to race. And what a fantastic livery that Lamborghini looks like. It just sort of works for me. I've looked at all of the new liveries here. Top Cats Racing sort of stands out to me, doesn't it? It can't not stand out because it's yellow and pink and purple, but it works.
It does. It's bold. It's very bold, but like you said, it does work. And I've got to be slightly biased here, but I do like the Paddock Motorsport cars as well. They do look very good. They've done well with them this year, but yeah, the Lamborghinis look great. They always do, and with a livery like that, they really do pop out from all the other cars.
First time in the commentary box, but corporate imperative. Drop the team name into the conversation. A spin, I'm afraid to say, and that's the Team Webb, James Webb driven BMW. That's coming out of the Robert chicane where he's lost the tail end of the car and it's sort of skittered away. So the Lamborghini gets going again, just ahead of one of the Make Happen Mercedes, so that is going to drop that car down to something like 14th position. It was running inside the top 10, so Paul Bailey in the McLaren gains a place. Richard Neary on that lap gained 3 places. And now he's gained another there, because that's now up inside the top 10 for the reigning champions. Those problems from free practice this morning and qualifying well behind them. We knew that car would make progress through the field. He's done all of the hard work to get up to sort of the top 10. Now every position that Richard wants to gain is going to become ever more difficult, because the next of the cars that's just up the road, Mo, is going to be the Ferrari, isn't it, in the hands of Lucky Kira. And Lucky is running in Group GTC. He might get caught by that car, but after that, then it's largely Group GT3 cars that Richard Neary is going to have to fight his way through. So you could argue he's done some hard work. The hard work really now begins with 18 minutes to go.
Of course, he's now going to be up against cars that are more similar to his pace. Like, you know, with the other GT3, so it's going to be a whole new challenge now to really push hard to get through the rest of the traffic and begin battling with the other GT3 and GTO cars. So hopefully we'll see some good moves, because Richard's a very, very quick driver, so it'll be interesting to see how he handles it.
And another Mercedes that's busy fighting away, you can see there, was Graham Tilley at the wheel of his number 4 car. So Graham Tilley, a new car for him for this season, still getting used to it. There goes number 80. That's one of the GT4 McLarens. That is Rob Trenker, who is an American driver who has jumped in for this weekend. I think we're going to see Ron at the first 3 rounds of the championship. Rich Mason is another driver who's regularly driven that car, but Rich has had a few health issues as well, so he's not able to join us this weekend. And here we're going to see a change for position as Simon Orange dies up the inside of Ian Campbell. Both of these drivers having raced GT4 McLarens last year, moving up to the GT3. Now there's a car that you can tell us all about, though. Number 26 Paddock Motorsport McLaren.
It's great to see that. He's battling away there. I think it's Tamar who's in the car. Or it may be Tom Roche at the moment.
It's Tamar that started that car.
So Tamar's in the car. This is his first race in the McLaren. So it's great to see him coming on and getting in the mix with everything. So he's a great driver. He's done a little bit of MX5s this year to get into the rhythm of everything. But it's it's been great to see his progress. You know, he's really come on as a driver, and I'm sure hopefully he'll progress throughout this year even more so.
Well, fresh from karting, isn't he, Tamer? Did a little bit of karting out in the UAE Championship and has done a little bit of Super 1 in the UK, but I think it is pretty much his first race on slicks, isn't it? That's for sure.
That's correct. Yes, it's a whole new experience for him. He's taken to it really well. You know, we've just been working on this weekend. We've been working on the driving techniques of the very quirky McLaren. You know, it's a very unique car, so it takes a bit to get your head around. But like I said, he's taken it on really well, and I can see there's going to be some big progress this year.
When you say quirky, can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit?
It's, you know, the GT4 class is great, and there's such a huge variety of cars, but the McLaren is a very road car based GT4 car, although it is a through and through race car, and it'll still produce the lap times of the other race cars in its class. There's a lot of personalities to it, I would say, that are very similar to the road car. You've just got to, you can't drive it instinctively, you have to think a lot more about what you're doing and what you're putting the car through. So it just takes a bit more time to think through, right, I need to brake this way, I need to accelerate this way, all those little things. And there's always loads of little things here and there as well that they all add up, and it's all there to improve times.
All to do with seat time, isn't it? Here's Richard Neary looking to try and pick off the GCAT Racing Porsche of Seamus Jennings. This is 8th and 9th place overall in the race. Richard Neary's not going to get the job done as they head round through McLean's corner. Blind entry, double apex right-hander at Coppice is next up. Seamus Jennings takes a slightly defensive line into it. Nail the first apex. You're almost at the middle part of the circuit for the second apex, and it's a difficult corner as well, though, because you've really got to feed that power in, haven't you, coming out of Coppice corner? But he's got the run, he's got the inside line as they head into Roberts.
It's great to watch, some really good racing here, but it's like you said, it's a difficult corner. There we go, the move's done. It's a difficult corner to get right onto that back straight, and if you get it right, it's great. You can gain so much time down there. Equally, if you get it wrong, you will feel the consequences all the way down that straight.
You can see just how busy it is as well, and we've got the GT3 cars trying to work their way through and past some of the GT4 cars. Just moving out of harm's way is the Aston Martin. Great to see that car back in the series, the older shape Aston Martin. We've not seen one for a couple of seasons, but it's nice to see that car out there, and good to see the driver back as well, because it's been a while since we last saw one of the championship competitors from Vector Racing in there, which is Peter Jackson. Nice to see him in the championship. Squabble's still continuing, though. What we're looking at here is the number 11 Mercedes. Now, this is Mike Price in 4th place, coming under big old pressure, really, from Simon Orange, who is still trying to recover from his squirrely moment coming out of the Robert chicane. And, of course, you know, he looks the quicker car at the moment, but trying to get past in the GT3 car's not easy. You've got traffic to contend with as well.
Massively. There's so many factors at play here, and especially on this layout of Donington, it's a very short layout, so everything's very condensed. You know, the GT3s catch the GT4s very quickly around this circuit, so like you can see there, it is so close, and it's so easy to get right, but it's equally so easy to get wrong. That
was good. I would say that's good car positioning from Mike Price there. He almost boxed in briefly, didn't he, Simon Orange there, using the back marker to do so. They dive up the inside of the Make Happen Ginetta and squeeze their way through, so the squabble for 4th and 5th can still continue as they head round through Schwantz Curve, uphill in towards the right-hander at McLean's corner. From there it's back towards Coppice once more, but there'll always be work to do. All of this whilst Ian Logie still continues to lead the race, but not by much. There's only 1.4 seconds from first to second position. Feed that power in again. Another car to try and pick off now as they head down the straight, and that's the Wheatcroft straight and in towards the braking area for the Robert chicane. And Simon Orange is showing the nose. He's trying to carve his way at the inside. There's a little bit of contact between the two of them as they brush off each other. Mike Price is not having any of it. Wheel to wheel through the corner. They brushed off each other, but it was lightish and side-to-side contact most, so they largely got away with that.
That was very close racing, and great that they both had the respect there to just calm things down a little bit when they got a little bit heated there, but it's good to see they're both racing still, and hopefully they can continue this battle for a few laps longer, well, till the end of the race, hopefully.
It was fantastic driving between the two of them. Yeah, I thought there was going to be larger contact than there was, but no, good driving from both. Simon Orange, Mike Price have now been joined by the number 23 McLaren that sits behind, which is a Greystone GT car in the hands of Ian Campbell, who won the Gulf 12 hours in the GT4 class when he travelled over there in the early part of 2022, so he's already had at least one race so far this year, so watch out for that one whilst they were squabbling. As for our race leader, though, Ian Logie picking his way through the traffic Here's the Scotsman through the Roberts chicane, flashing his lights at the wheel of the Ram Racing prepared Mercedes. Ian, a busy chap really, because Ian has done a fair chunk of racing over the winter, isn't he? He went out to the United Arab Emirates. He raced in the Radical UAE series out there. We saw him race in the Gulf 12 Hours as well. He's racing here in GT Cup. He's also taking part in the British GT Championship. So I think I was chatting to Ian earlier on. Over the course of the season, I think he's got 70 or 80 races planned this year, Mo. Busy guy, isn't he?
That's busy would be an understatement. Oh, it was a very very close moment there, but yeah, it's almost as busy as this circuit is at the moment. It's it's nice to be able to do that much racing. I'm sure most of us drivers would absolutely love that, but it's great to see people getting out there, getting as much track time as they can.
And he's a very, very quick. It's almost a disservice to call Ian Moggy an AM driver, but he is an AM. He doesn't race for a profession. He doesn't earn money out of it. He has been a very successful businessman before stepping away from those businesses, and that's what allows him to race. But he is quick. And you can see the gap between himself and the McLaren there, which flashes his lights, which is the number 66 McLaren in the hands of Morgan Tilbrook. So Morgan qualified the Enduro Motorsport McLaren third on the grid. He managed to squeeze his way past Simon Orange as a result of that problem for Simon Orange, and that looks like that's a problem there for the number 30 Ginetta, isn't it? Make Happen Racing, Greg Evans. So the G55 has got an issue there, Mo. Yeah,
it was going a bit slower than with an optimal there, but hopefully it's nothing terminal, and hopefully they can get back going again. But this circuit with the curbs, there's some really brutal curbs out there, as we found out last year as well, sadly. But those brutal curbs can really do some damage to the car sometimes. So sometimes it's a battle of attrition, as much as it is a battle against the other cars around you.
Are the curbs as bad through the Roberts chicane as they are as when you flick the other way onto the Grand Prix circuit through the Fogarty chicane?
Sadly, yes. They are. Right. They are brutal curbs. Some cars can take them, some can't. It's not nice to be the one to find out that you can't take those curbs. So it's almost like it's best bet just to stay clear, because what you would gain through there is almost not justified, against the risks.
Soon rip the bottom off the car if you're not careful. Yeah, that Ginetta is definitely destined for the pit lane, I'm afraid to say. We're looking at Steve Burgess here at the wheel of the Group GTO leading Radical. So Steve threads his way through the Roberts chicane on towards the Wheatcroft straight over the start-finish line. Another 2-mile lap, or 1.979 to be absolutely precise, mile lap of the Donington Park National Circuit. You can see some of the other squabbles going on in Group GTH as well. The Make Happen Racing Mercedes under pressure from a Porsche. Is the Ginetta even going to make it back? Is he waiting for a gap in the traffic, Mo, just trying to stay out of harm's way as much as possible? I think he is.
That was a very good call there. Very, very smart. That's a lot of people would probably go barrelling into there and then end up being stuck very slow on the apex, which obviously just causes a big backlog and a potentially big incident. So that was a very good decision there to do that. Sometimes that's the best option, just to wait that little bit longer, and it saves everyone else's day from going horribly wrong.
Yeah, so hats off to Greg Evans for being aware as to what was happening and trying to minimise the impact on his fellow competitors, despite the fact that his race is clearly coming to an end now. Make Happen Racing ready to receive the car. So as for the progress of Richard Neary, well, the number 8 ABBA Commercials Mercedes is now, remember, from the back of the grid on what was a colossal grid of cars. What was it, some 34, 35, 36 cars having qualified, even those with problems, has now made his way through up into 7th position. Now, the next of the cars up the road from him is going to be the number 23 McLaren of Ian Campbell, the Greystone GT car. That is a fair way up the road. Last time through, the gap from Ian Campbell to Richard Neary as Neary heads over the start-finish line, 5.2 seconds, but Richard Neary was lapping 1.4 seconds quicker. So another 2 or 3 laps, we might be able to usher Richard Neary up inside the top 6, which would be a fantastic result for the defending champions. And that's what you need, isn't it? If you're defending champions and you have problems in the first race, damage limitation, and he's minimising the impact of that poor qualifying.
Yes, it's what it's about. If qualifying doesn't go your way, you've really just got to make up as many places as you can in the race and just take advantage of the situations like Richard is. See the Audis coming to the pits here. Hopefully, I think it's David Franklin who was in that, so hopefully there's nothing too serious there.
Yeah, great to see David back in the championship. He's been a regular in a Porsche, but this Audi being run by his usual team, 24/7 Motorsport, partnered up with the Brazilian Adriano Medeiros for this weekend. Now that was a scary moment there for Alex Stevenson. You were talking about how difficult it is to get the car turned through Coppice. He clearly made a mistake there, and then as he tried to get the car back on track, skittered from one side to the other.
That was very close, very, very close, but it looks like he's got going again, and like you said, it's as we said before, it's a very tough corner to get right. You either get understeer or you can get oversteer. It's a real kind of potluck of what you'll experience, really. So yeah, it looks like he's okay, but it looks like he maybe just caught the gravel and put him into a spin. But yeah, very close one there.
It also looks as though gaffer tape is being applied to David Franklin's Audi in the pit lane. Now, not sure whether that was as a result of some contact or whether maybe there was issues with the car running at a cooler temperature than they wanted, and they're covering up the radiator ducts there. Not entirely sure. No, that's damage, isn't it? That is absolutely for sure. Or it's lost a panel, has it? No, you can see scuff marks down the side, Mo, can't you?
Yeah, it looks like it's had a bit of a coming together with another car, but seems like they're good to go again, which is the main thing. Back on track. So hopefully they can get to the end of the race and potentially if there's a safety car or something. Hopefully there's not, but if there is, then that will maybe bring them back into contention at the back end of the race.
Up towards the Roberts chicane, Mike Price, the Porsche that sits behind is the team hard car that's been lapped, but that Porsche is about to be gobbled up by the number 23 car in the hands of Ian Campbell. So the green Mercedes, the white and black and yellow McLaren that sits behind is for position. That's for 5th and 6th place. They've got traffic to deal with, which is the number 3 Charlotte Gilbert driven Lamborghini Super Trofeo car. So Charlotte will be well aware as to what's going on and make sure that she tries to stay out of harm's way, lets the quicker cars go through. She'll then want to make sure that she doesn't lose a place to the Porsche, which she does, unfortunately. So the Porsche sneaks through, which is James Taylor, and that would have been for position there, I think. Yeah, that is Charlotte Gilbert now down into 17th. James Taylor grabs the place there, so difficult, isn't it? You want to stay out of the way of quicker cars, but equally as much you don't want to lose places. And Charlotte Gilbert there, I think, was almost too courteous to the cars that were trying to lap her, and it's cost her a position.
It's easily done. We've all had it happen to us before, especially in GT Cup, where there's so many cars and so many different classes. It's one of those things that sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. And on that occasion, sadly, the door was left slightly a bit too open, and James was able to take advantage of the situation. Which, as all drivers, that's all what we want to do. You've got to take advantage of these situations when it's right, and those situations don't always come around.
And you do. You absolutely have to, because of course, remember, all of these cars are, depending on the group that they're in, largely there's a balance of performance that's issued. So, and on a circuit like Donington, where it's not easy to overtake, any opportunity to try and grab the place you need to do. You can see just how busy it is there up at Coppice Corner. A raft of Group GTH McLarens being picked off by the McLaren MP412C Can-Am in the hands of Paul Bailey, who is the reigning Group GTO champion. Paul Bailey will want to get on with it as well, as he sits there in 11th position. The black Ferrari is right behind him, which is Lucky Kira, who is running in a different group, but they are again fighting for 11th and 12th places. And Richard Neary's off. Problems for Richard Neary. Exit of the old hairpin. Maybe pushing a little bit too hard, perhaps, Mo, to gain time. We didn't see the beginning of it, but the end of it suggests that was a bit of a moment maybe he had.
Yeah, it's hard to see what actually happened there, but it's a very easy corner to get wrong, especially if you run wide or get a bit of oversteer mid-corner. The best option is to just let it run wide and rejoin where it's safe to do so. But yeah, hopefully that was nothing, no contact or anything, but it could just be the case of pushing hard and pushing hard to get back to the front again. But yeah, it looks like he was able to carry on, which is always the main thing.
Yeah, big shame for Richard Neary. This is John Dillon, the number 61 Lamborghini, currently sitting in 8th position. The car that's behind him is the number 69 Make Happen Racing Mercedes, which is a few laps adrift of that GT3 car. The Make Happen Mercedes is John Curry, who's driving, sorry, that's the Chris Hart car. They're very similarly liveried, but one is 69, one is 96, but that's Chris Hart in the Make Happen Racing Mercedes. Where is he sitting? He's leading Group GTH at the moment, but if he looks in his mirrors, there's a number 50 Porsche right behind him, which is James Wallace. So this is for the lead of Group GTH. You'll have been in this position last year in your GTH McLaren, under pressure, 3 minutes to go. You've got to keep it clean, haven't you?
Massively. You just got to keep your head screwed on and keep cool and calm. It's very easy to get all wound up and kind of wound up in the heat of the moment, especially when you've got a car right in your mirrors. You start thinking of what's on the line, which is ultimately a win or at least a podium. So yeah, you just got to stay as calm as you can. It's not easy to do, and it takes time to develop that skill. But yeah, let's hope he can hold out, or if not, at least they can have a good battle to the end.
And I suppose the key is really, if you're the driver ahead, make sure, particularly at Coppice Corner and probably out of the Roberts chicane, that you're clean off those corners, because they're the corners that lead onto the big long straights, so it's vital.
Exactly. These straights are so easy to gain time, but equally they're so easy to lose time. And a lot of the time when you lose that speed on the straights, it's just from little silly mistakes that you wouldn't do on any other lap, but just having that added pressure in the heat of the moment just causes those little mistakes. And they all add up sometimes. But equally, if you're clean and you're more clean than the guys behind you, that's when you get those gaps starting to build up, which ultimately brings good results.
Up towards the braking area for the Robert Chicane, still in the lead of Group GTO. Third overall goes the Radical. Right behind is another raft of Group GTH cars, including, by the look of things, Mark Hopton, who's racing for Greystone GT at the wheel of that sort of blue McLaren. Steve Burgess is pushing hard. You can see the Radical weaving around there as he was on the bumps coming in towards what is the braking area for Redgate Corner. Up at Coppice in the meantime is the lead battle for Group GTH once more. And by the look of things, Chris Hart is doing exactly what you suggested he's doing, just driving neatly and cleanly, not being too distracted by what's going on in the mirrors. Drive your own line, maybe a little bit defensive just to try and break the toe down the straight, but then get to the outside line to take as wide a line into the chicane as you can. Exactly.
It's sometimes you set the move up a few corners before you actually do the overtake. It's especially a circuit this short. It's very easy to like we're seeing now, put the other driver on the defensive move and compromise their exit. And if you can get a really good exit, then you've just done the move for yourself much easier than it could have been.
He was a little bit sideways coming off Redgate Corner there, though, and that has potentially given James Wallace the opportunity to drive around the outside at the first part of the Craner curves, but then he's going to still be on the outside for the second part of the Craner curves. Chris Hart hangs on to it at the wheel of the Mercedes. Seamus Jennings is usually keen to try and lap both of these cars as well, so that's the difficulty. They're having their own little squabble for the lead of the group, whilst also having to consider what's going on with the quicker cars working their way through, and there's very little time left on the clock as well. So can Chris Hart hang on to it? He's been clinging on by his fingertips for the last few laps. The traffic has got past both of them now, as Seamus Jennings on the run up towards Coppice Corner, so they can lock their horns again for the lead of Group GTH. And for Chris Hart, well, it's probably only one more lap to go, isn't it? Because Ian Logie now, I'd imagine, is on his last lap, and these two are about to start it.
This is great. This is really good racing. That's what you want to see, where you've got the faster cars coming through, but you've also got the slower cars having their battles. And it's when the GT3s are overtaking the GT4s, as a GT4 driver, that's prime time, to get through and make some easy moves. It's like following an ambulance down the motorway. They're just clearing the way for you.
And it looks as though Ian Logie is going to head on to the top step of the podium. Round one of 2022 GT Cup Championship season goes the way of the Scotsman. Ian Logie comes through to claim the win. Morgan Tilbrook not that far behind him in the end, as those two were separated by less than 1 second in the end. The Radical in the background, in the hands of Steve Burgess, will finish in third place. He'll win Group GTO at the wheel of that, at his local circuit as well, let's say. And fourth place, good recovery drive, I've got to say. The number 67 car of Simon Orange that had that very Larry moment coming out of the Robert Chicane, recovered to finish fourth overall in the race. The light green Mercedes flashes its lights. That's Mike Price, who finished fifth on the road, but I think has been given a time penalty for transgressing the circuit limits a little bit too much. So that should promote Ian Campbell up into fifth position at the wheel of the number 23 car, with Mike Price then finishing in sixth place. Richard Neary and the recovery drive from the back of the grid following problems in qualifying should net seventh. And John Dillon, I think, will finish in 8th place, with Seamus Jennings about to take the checkered flag in 9th. And I think Graham Tilley in the Texerve Mercedes should complete the top 10. Who's going to win Group GTH? They finished their final lap, and he managed to do it, didn't he? Chris Hart at the wheel of that black and yellow Mercedes hangs on to the group, not for the want of trying, though, as far as James Wallace was concerned.
Yeah, some great defensive driving there, and I'm sure it was an exciting last lap from what we didn't see there. But, it's great to see the GTH class once again thriving and bringing some really good racing. It was incredible last year, and it seems to have just grown from strength to strength. And I have to say, the yellow headlights look amazing on the cars this year. I'm really happy about that. They look really cool. So really good to see some close racing all the way through there.
And I've got to say, sprint race, it was close, and I didn't really see any silly driving. There was a tiny bit, Crumsey got close on a couple of occasions, but good driving from everybody.
Really good. Driving standards were great there. It's especially first race of the season, everyone's going to be a little bit rusty here and there, but it's, done the whole race. There's no significant, incidents, no safety cars, nothing like that, and that's exactly what you want to see, especially at the start of the year.
Well, you've experienced commentary for the first time. You might just later on today experience the commentator's curse as well for the first time. We'll have to wait and see on that. You're going to join me also for the pit stop race later on, I gather.
Yep, that'll be it. I'll be here for that, and hopefully I can be on the giving end of the commentator's curse this time rather than the receiving end. It's too many experiences of being on the receiving end.
Just talk us through your day today, because you're not racing. Is it frustration because you're not racing, or you're busy enough with the driver coaching duties?
Very busy. It's kind of just mucking in and helping where I can. Paddock Motorsport have done a lot for me, and they've been incredible. So I think it's only fair that I give my time back to them. And so I'm helping the drivers with, driver performance stuff. So just helping, going through data, what they're happy and unhappy about, all the little things that all ultimately add up to the driver's performance, and just really being there to help the team. If something needs doing, then just mucking in and giving an extra pair of hands. So it's nice to be able to enjoy a race weekend outside of the driving seat, because I'll be able to learn things just as much as I would on the actual race weekend.
Brilliant to hear, brilliant to hear. We'll hopefully confirm the results for you very, very shortly as well. There is Richard Neary just receiving the congratulations from Sam Neary after what was a solid old drive, really. Quite impressed again with that. Knew that Richard had to push to try and haul that car through the order. Finished what was 7th on the road in the end, but 6th in the group. So for 6th in the group, that's 8 championship points that they've netted that otherwise they might have missed out on. You can see just how busy the Donington Park pit lane is here. It's all of the cars which are filling the garages that we have here. 38 garages at Donington Park, and they are all pretty much full of GT Cup Championship competitors for this weekend. However, I'm not sure that we will be able to confirm the results with a graphic, so let me just guide you through the results then without the graphic. The win, apologies for that, goes the way of the number 16 Mercedes of Ian Loggy. He also wins Group GT3. Second was number 66 Morgan Tilbrook, and third, and the winner of Group GTO, was the number 7 Radical of Steve Burgess. Fourth was number 67 Simon Orange. Fifth was 23 Ian Campbell, and sixth in the end was number 11 Mike Price. Seventh place for Richard Neary, the number 8 Mercedes. Eighth place went the way of 61, which was John Dillon. Ninth is 33 Seamus Jennings, and completing the top 10 was number 4, which is Graham Tilley. In 11th place, car number 28, Paul Bailey in the McLaren MP412C Can-Am. 12th went the way of 247, Lucky Kira, who won Group GTC for the Challenge specification cars with Ferrari 488. 13th was number 13, conveniently enough, which was James Webb for that race. 14th place was 44 Steve Ruston, the former champion. 15th place was number 9, which was Jensen Lunn. Then when we pick out the other group winners, we know that Group GTH was won by Chris Hart as he finished down in 18th position, and I think that will probably give us all of the other group winners that we need as we work our way down through the order. So I think that confirms all of our group winners. So that's it for GT Cup Championship for the moment. Mo Ritson, thank you for joining me. I'm sure you've now got the process of having to debrief and look back through the data on the drivers, I guess, between this race and the next, because there's still things to be learnt.
That's right. We've got quite a lot of time, which is nice. But yes, I'm sure we'll be in the data room, going through the data and seeing, what went right, what went wrong, and improving on the bits we can, and just looking forwards to the next race later on this afternoon.
Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for Paddock Motorsport for letting you go as well. But that's all for the moment from the GT Cup Championship here at Donington Park. Remember, we have the pit stop race coming up later on today. That is scheduled to get underway at 5:25, which means our live stream should be going live 5 o'clock or just after. But, of course, things may change depending on what happens over the course of a busy day here at Donington Park. So thanks for joining us for the first sprint race of the season, but don't go anywhere. Make sure you're back with us for the pit stop race later on. Until then, it's goodbye.